Hey guys, I wanted to do something a little different this time around and try my hand at a bit of an editorial. Now, my goal of this is to, yes, do a Star Wars Rogue One Catalyst review, but I also want to highlight the specific reason why I find this book so compelling and the author behind it, James Luceno. James Luceno has had a storied history with Star Wars, and it goes back as far as the new Jedi Order Agents of Chaos 1 Heroes Trial. That, for you that don't know, was actually one of the now legacy books in the new Jedi Order series back in the day. For me and a lot of Star Wars fans around that time, it was one of our biggest scapegoats for the Star Wars universe, considering that we had no movies at the time. It was our way of getting into the lore and the history of Star Wars without necessarily being exposed to the movies like now we have almost one every year, well, hopefully for the next few. So James Luceno has already had this story passed with Star Wars, but in particular, he has a history specifically with his last three books that I find incredibly enthralling. He was most recently committed to write the Star Wars Del Rey book Tarkin, about the character Grand Moff Tarkin that appeared in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, or the first Star Wars movie ever made. Tarkin was a character that used fear and military might to assume complete authority over others and subjugate the galaxy to the Empire's will. Order, discipline, and authority were his absolute attributes, and Luceno crafted a novel in which we could actually empathize to a degree and understand where this character was coming from. It's easy to make Tarkin out as the Gestapo boogeyman, but not so much as the character who had to use his own wits, cunning, and sheer will to survive the conditions of his home planet. Tarkin had a history and a reason for being who he is, and in an age all too focused on making sure the villains service the good guys, Luceno gave us a novel where we understood where, specifically, the lead villain was coming from. If that wasn't all, add on the obvious ties to Darth Vader and why they were best buds in Episode 4, and you get a great damn novel. Tarkin wasn't the first of these three books that I mentioned before, however. The first of which that really caught my eye was a little book called Darth Plagueis. For those well-versed in the Star Wars mythos, the book Darth Plagueis should ring familiar. As the name alludes, the book focuses on the Sith Lord himself. Before this novel, he was only mentioned briefly in Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, in the scene occurring in the Alien Opera House with Chancellor Palpatine and Anakin Skywalker.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. It's ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
Luceno's novel caught us up on the mysterious Dark Lord and explained Palpatine's connection to this previously unknown Sith. Darth Plagueis showed that Luceno had an excellent talent for crafting narratives that felt fresh and unique, but still fitting in and enriching the entire Star Wars universe as a whole. With the new story editions of Emperor Palpatine's Dark Beginnings, Palpatine's apprenticeship to Plagueis, Plagueis' experimentation with manipulating the Force to the biological degree, and the final showdown of how Palpatine supplanted him, it's easy to see how this novel resonated for the hardcore Star Wars fans. The only shame of the book was that it came out before Disney acquired the rights to Lucasfilm, and thus making it not a part of the current Star Wars canon. Darth Plagueis is still one of the best Star Wars legacy novels, however, and it's once again the prime example of what Luceno does best: characters and lore. This brings me back to Star Wars Rogue One Catalyst. This was Luceno's latest novel, and remember what I was saying about characters and lore? That's the high point of this book as well. Now, the beginning characters start out with the brilliant scientists Galen Erso and Lyra Erso. They're energy development researchers, and it's Galen's fascination and expertise with the mysterious kyber crystals that serve as the catalyst, pun intended, of the entire story. For those unaware, it was long understood by fans of the old canon that a very large kyber crystal was the source of power for the infamous battle station known as the Death Star. It was only through the energy produced by these crystals, used previously only to power lightsabers for the Jedi, that made the destructive power of the battle station complete.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
The interesting thing with Galen's character, however, is that Galen is a man of principle and completely against the use of science for military use. He's a pacifist first and foremost, and the only reason why he was interested in the crystals was his vision for a new energy source for the universe. His true completed vision would have been seeing that the energy source was used to power entire cities and worlds even, as a cheaper alternative and more sustainable energy source. Ring any bells to any real-life men of history? How did the man whose beautiful and pure vision become something so warped, dark, and twisted? Well, this is where we enter Lieutenant Commander Orson Krennic. Orson begins as the head of Republic's Corps of Engineers, back before the Clone Wars first began. As head of Republic's Corps of Engineers, he was tasked by Mas Amedda on behalf of Chancellor Palpatine to oversee the resources and development of the weapons for what was being described as the weapon in its earliest stages. You see, this mysterious project was the earliest inception of the Death Star. In the beginning, the Republic acquired the plans for the Death Star from a Geonosian separatist engineer known as Poggle the Lesser. Since it was technology found in the enemy's hands, this filled the thought that the Republic would need to begin building in secret their version of this weapon first, as it was thought the separatists would be building a version of their own in secret as well. You see, this created an arms race between the Republic and the separatists and fueled the idea that they need to get to this weapon first. Now, the idea and the concept of it was simple enough. The hull had even been starting to be constructed as they planned out what was really the hard point of the Death Star. Its super laser weapon as well as the energy required to sustain it. That was another matter completely. It's here that Orson Krennic uses his clean and manipulative mind to persuade Mas Amedda into giving him the project of developing the weapon itself and who to envision it. Krennic's first thought naturally went to his first longtime friend from school, Galen Erso. Through Krennic's deceit and power of persuasion, he manipulates Galen to work for him. It's this constant battle of wits between two different kinds of minds and the different type of men that they are that I found to be the ultimate crux of the story. In many ways, their relationship reminded me of two characters from NBC's short but excellent TV show Hannibal. Krennic was in many ways Hannibal himself, manipulating those around him to achieve his own ends, and Galen being Will Graham, the very empathetic crime scene investigator with a brilliant mind, but his empathy led him to be too close to those that might be on the darker side of the path. As Catalyst is a prequel to Rogue One, I found it compelling in particular that Mads Mikkelsen would be playing the later version of Galen in the movie, a role which, again, I found to be the reverse of his role in the Hannibal TV series I just mentioned. Their story, and the story of what is later named Project Celestial Power, is at the core of this novel's strengths, but is not the only thing that shines through. Fantastic support characters like Galen's wife Lyra, the smuggler Has Obit, the commanding Governor Tarkin, which is a return appearance here, Jyn Erso, the child version of our upcoming movie's protagonist, and surprise appearance of one of Rogue One's headline cast, all make for one hell of a thrilling novel. The attention to detail, the tone, and the fresh look at the Clone Wars, as well as the early days of the Empire, reminded me of why I love the Star Wars universe so much. James Luceno is completely brilliant as a storyteller as well as a story builder. Through his book Catalyst, he gives incredible setup for a movie that I will expect at least be good, if not great. Gareth Edwards needs only take the template Luceno creates in this book and keep following it to make what could be potentially one of the best Star Wars stories to date. The Death Star has always captivated my mind as a Star Wars fan, from when I was a kid just seeing it for the first time on screen to now as an adult. The book reignited why I've always been fascinated in it, and now I got the answers to most, if not all, the questions I've always had regarding the Death Star from my past 20 plus years of being a fan. Furthermore, I again appreciate James' excellent attention to villains and helping to create a philosophical juxtaposition of ideologies that I can now muse over as an adult. From one Star Wars fan to another, this book is an absolute recommendation for those that are fans of the Star Wars universe. Whether you're the hardcore Star Wars fan or just the casual that's looking to get a really goddamn good story. James Luceno has it all in this book, and it's that followed by his previous forays into the Star Wars universe that lead him to be one of, I believe, the most successful Star Wars story creators that Lucasfilm has ever worked with. I really, really think that James Luceno needs to continue his work in the Star Wars universe, as I find him an extremely effective storyteller. And I hope he gives us more Star Wars books to come. The man's a freaking legend in my eyes, and I feel as if my Star Wars fandom in many ways has been enriched by him. So I just want to say thank you, James, for your continued passion and drive to give us more Star Wars stories that we can look forward to for potentially years to come. So if you didn't get the hint, I really, really liked Catalyst, and I think you need to go buy this book immediately. It's one of the best Star Wars books ever made, and I think out of the new canon, it's slightly second to the book that I found incredibly surprising and enthralling, Lost Stars. And that's no bad thing to this book. By God, it's so good. And that just highlights why Lost Stars is just so good too, because this, by all rights, should be better. And it's just an inkling down for me. And maybe that's not the right word. For me as a Star Wars fan, I tend to get hyped about certain things more than other things. And Death Star has been one of the biggest, but I've always found the oppression of the Empire to be one of my biggest reasons that I love Star Wars so much, because it was such a good bad guy to have, and it was so right for the Rebels to do what they're doing in this Star Wars universe. But Lost Stars explored something that I never found myself asking. Were the Rebels really good or not? And it also gained a new idea of what the Empire was to many people too. That's why Lost Stars is so good. But that's also some of the parts of why Luceno's latest book, Star Wars Catalyst, is good too. I think these are both excellent reads, and if you like Star Wars, go read them immediately. You owe it to yourself as a fan. So treat yourself, please. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed what would be kind of a mid-review, mid-editorial look on both Catalyst and its creator, James Luceno. I really adore the man, and please, comment below, let him know that you really like his stuff too, because I think he's becoming one of the best in the Star Wars verse in terms of storytelling. So stay tuned here for more, guys. We're going to have a great Star Wars review coming up later this week. I'm going to go see the movie as this releases on Thursday tonight, and I cannot freaking wait for it. Oh my God, this movie looks great. And it's for the reasons that I highlighted before, that I think it has such a big chance to be one of the best movies we've ever seen. So far, critics are raving about it. But I do want to keep my hype under control, as I know certain things may have a difference of opinion for me, being the long-term fan that I am. All right, guys. We'll catch you later.